A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Films I'm Willing to Talk About Again. And well, here we go with another piece that I have in mind for this occasion. Because what I'm going to talk about here is something that I've considered to be rather special. The adventures of a certain pug and tabby cat known as The Adventures of Milo and Otis, a Japanese and American collab project. Essentially speaking, this is actually meant to be a Japanese film, but for the most part, it was localized mainly in the United States. It did feature two different narrators for each country, with Dudley Moore being the US version. And even IMDb, believe it or not, actually has the likes of Milo and Otis's own actors, which of course were an actual orange tabby cat and pug known by the name of Chatron and Pooh. And so you could definitely say they knew how to give these actors recognition. Kind of like how with Turner and Hooch. Hooch's own actor, an actual dog, had lived a pretty good life, you know, from beginning to end. But in any case though, this movie came out in 1986. So I definitely could not believe it was that old when I saw it. It definitely felt a lot more recent in my eyes. But in any case though, The Adventures of Milo and Otis is basically what you'd think it is. The adventures of a cat and a dog, best friends forever, and all having swell lives leading up until the very end in life. And well, it basically comes out first as Milo being born, and Milo being a young kitten whom was basically raised in a barn by a mother along with some siblings as well. So it's basically the essence of a cat giving birth, having multiple kittens to take care of. They occasionally have some milk each morning and they go around and explore. Milo, of course, sometimes got himself into a bit of trouble, and his mother wouldn't really be happy with him. And just as Dudley Moore would basically put it together, I'd say the fact that he could narrate and also work with the likes of Milo and Otis as well as other characters here and there throughout the film, he does a pretty good job at what he does. You know, it's kind of like how with Thomas and Friends, for example, and all the narrators they went through up until where they started having actual actors along with the narrators themselves. You know, basically pre-2009, there was a big point in history. Thomas and Friends had George Carlin, Michael Angelis, Michael Brandon, Alec Baldwin, and of course, the Beatles' own, well, Ringo Starr. They all had their narrator jobs and character acting and whatnot put together for the entirety of the show that preceded the hit era, as we like to call it. But in any case though, with Milo and Otis, you have a similar formula taking place with Dudley Moore, or even the Japanese version basically, with the narrator themselves basically doing the character voices at the same time they're also narrating the storyline. And as we hear from them, after the mother passes away, with Milo eventually growing up to a good size, to eventually wander around on his own, away from the barn and whatnot, and with Otis having a similar thing in mind, well, the two basically get together and become great friends with each other. And just as we would certainly expect, but as we would also get to expect, Milo himself eventually gets to a point of trouble where he can't necessarily escape well on his own. He basically gets trapped in a box floating on the river. Otis tries to save him by going alongside the river, trying to find solutions to things, but Milo just drifts farther and farther from home, and Otis ends up in similar situations. In fact, there's a pretty big point where I've felt quite nervous actually. A bear appears in the river, and he actually sees Milo in the box. So, oh my gosh, the bear is gonna kill Milo. And just when you think that happens, oh man, you got Otis coming in to save him. Otis is clawing at the bear, and boy, that was impressive. I didn't realize a pug could actually take on a bear, of all things. Oh, but you know what? It only gets better from there. I mean, because Milo is not only far away from home, he doesn't know what the heck to do with his life. I mean, throughout the entirety of the film, it all comes down to adventure. Lots of impressive cinematography of both nature and the two animals in question. I mean, it's a tabby cat and a pug exploring the wild, where anything could go wrong for them. But hey, considering the crew that was used in particular for this project, they certainly did a pretty good job in most ways. Kind of like in the regard of which other movies that centered around animals, like Homeward Bound and Babe and even the Air Bud and Air Buddies films. I really need to talk about those someday, but back to Milo and Otis though. Night would come around and day would come around as well. Storms would hit the area as the beaches are found, new animals are encountered like snakes and more bears, and then there's even a piglet who unfortunately is caught in the eyes of a certain owl late at night. And Milo, of course, comes in to aid him, and the pig invites him to his home. You know, Milo gets to know about his family pretty well, and you know, that really shows how wholesome things can truly be with movies like this. Not too many people seem to really appreciate the kind of aspect that movies with animals solely being on camera actually can give us some pretty good ideas on what to reminisce about. But hey, it all eventually comes down to a point where Milo and Otis eventually reunite. Milo gets trapped in a hole, and when Otis finally catches up to him, he helps pull him out to safety. And so, it sure is quite a sight and sound. Two best friends reunited at last. And they eventually make their way home together, and they eventually, believe it or not, manage to find company. Yeah, that's right. Milo finds a certain someone whom actually befriends him. Yep. So Otis isn't the only part of company that he gets to encounter. And well, when the two cats get together, they and Otis try to find some peaceful place to go to. Otis, though, would rather go into the mountains alone. And well, when he does, it's kind of sad, you know. Like, even today, I can hardly bear the idea that Otis, a pug, just wanders into the mountains alone. What if something happened to him? Honestly, I still wouldn't know, even today. But whatever the case, when he does get there, he does actually find company of his own. A fellow pug known by the name of Sandra. Yeah, French pronunciation. Yeah. So basically, with Otis and Sandra, they actually do find themselves a good spot to go to as well. And guess what happens next? Milo and Otis, they both have partners, and they both give birth to a fresh new litter of puppies and kittens. Yeah, the circle of life has officially made its full elapse, 360 degrees, and now we're back to the point of square one. Yeah, but hey, like I've said, things really do eventually get around to where it does become a big part of the story. I mean, you got families now. Otis and Milo aren't just best friends, they are best friends with their own spouses and their own children. So it's basically an unbelievable aspect where it follows the circle of life, kind of like how The Lion King had shown us. And after all these years that have passed since it first came out, boy, it sure is quite a spectacle. And with Milo and Otis basically preceding it, this basically is a nice turnaround of things. I mean, like I've said, this came out in '86, 8 years prior, but with The Lion King truly showing us what the circle of life is all about, you know, it's really one of those moments. A moment where a movie goes from being, I guess, a youthful, carefree individual to someone with a newfound responsibility and appreciation for life as it is. It's that sort of aspect that's been with a lot of us since day one. And hey, Otis and Milo make their way to do a number of things while the snow is around. Their children are all about. They get to know each other quite well. Puppies and kittens all playing with each other. I don't know what could be cuter than that. But hey, another big storm eventually hits, and Otis ends up freezing out there. And boy, it feels just as tense as we've seen before then, with Otis basically giving us a sense that he might end up giving up, but then eventually finding new strength as the storm eventually dies down and he is left to go find his friend Milo. And when he does, he eventually wants to go find some food for the puppies. And with both the kittens and puppies well fed and well taken care of, the weather eventually changes to where it gives us a true ending that feels happier than everything we've possibly seen up until this very point. You know, you got Otis and Milo. They went from being best friends who got separated from each other to finding each other again after some time, to eventually finding love in life as well as family. It really is a true appreciation of things for how an ecosystem learns to thrive in itself. And with that in mind, I give this movie a good 7.4 out of 10.1. And one other thing I might as well mention is that, believe it or not, there actually was a sequel from 1991 called The Adventures of Milo and Otis 2. So that's something that had never, ever crossed through me before. It's something I feel like might eventually need to be touched up on, but being that it's a movie I never once saw, it's probably going to have to go in films I should have talked about years ago, season 3, when I debuted it next fall. So whatever it is, I hope you enjoyed this piece, and I will have more of this stuff in the future. So make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side for more.
Whatever I want, I usually get, and I'm thinking I want you, but I don't have you yet. I ain't got no tricks to be playing on you.